Welcome back to those who are joining us after dinner last evening. And welcome. It looks like this room is about twice as full as it was last evening. So welcome to those of you that are joining the Data Summit for the first time. My name is Deb Rodriguez, for those of you who are new to PIMS and data at the state. I'm lucky enough to lead the team that collects and reports a good portion of the data that you put into PIMS. I'm going to introduce our first keynote today. We actually have two keynotes for you. That's a treat. Pedro Rivera was appointed as the Pennsylvania Secretary of Education by Governor Tom Wolf and confirmed unanimously by the state Senate in 2015. He brings extensive experience in public education to his role as a member of Governor Wolf's cabinet and has spent his entire career helping students. Prior to his appointment, he served as superintendent of the school district of Lancaster. Additionally, he was a classroom teacher, assistant principal, and executive director for the School District of Philadelphia, as well as a staff member with the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers. In September 2014, he was honored by the White House as a champion of change for his efforts to transform urban education, one of 10 recipients nationwide to receive the prestigious honor. As Secretary of Education, he has traveled the Commonwealth, meeting with educators, administrators, and students on the Schools That Teach tour, discussing their priorities and needs, and taking those insights back to Harrisburg. Under his leadership, the Pennsylvania Department of Education has engaged thousands of stakeholders, including educators, parents, policymakers, business and industry leaders, higher education officials, and advocates to inform the department's work on issues like reforming graduation requirements, establishing the PA Future Ready Index, and crafting Pennsylvania's Every Student Succeeds Act state plan. Secretary Rivera also spearheaded the creation of the Superintendent's Academy, a first-of-its-kind, two-year professional development program designed for district leaders serving in high-poverty areas, urban and rural, across the state. Please join me in welcoming Secretary Rivera.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We can do a better job than that. I saw this great breakfast you had this morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right, good morning, good morning. So before we start, I do want to take a moment and thank our servers. I mean, they had roller skates on. They were all over the place. Thank you. I think they just poured 5 cups of coffee for me, myself, so I can imagine how they were able to make it anywhere else. So it's my honor, along with my colleague Matt, to welcome everyone to the 2019 Pennsylvania Department of Education Data Summit. And this year we were excited. As I looked down the list, we had over 850 participants hailing from all across the Commonwealth. Practically every corner of the Commonwealth is represented here today, which makes this actually one of our largest summits, largest professional development opportunities we facilitated this year. So we also know that this is not only a time to share updates and what new things are going on in the department, but also an opportunity to meet new colleagues, to engage, to support each other, to network, which is really what makes this the premier opportunity, the premier experience for each and every one of us, because of course the agenda is important, but the relationships and the opportunity to learn from each other are even much more important. But before we kick off today, I have to take a moment and thank those who made this opportunity a reality. They've worked extremely hard. So if you would, I'll ask after I announce them, you join me in giving them a big round of applause. First, I'd like to thank our deputy, Debbie Reeves, Dave Ream, Deb Rodriguez, Adrian Huber, and Janet Kennedy. Stand up, guys. I want to give you a big round of applause. I can see you. Thank you for giving them an applause. They absolutely deserve those kudos. Because planning for this event takes months. And their hard work and dedication always results not only in an engaging agenda, but top-notch speakers and learning opportunities. And we know that they try to fit entertaining and relevant data while they fit in the information we have to share, changes to both federal and state policy and practice. And I also want to take a moment and thank each and every one of you as I look through the agenda for the past few days, just to see how many school leaders and school districts stepped up to provide professional development opportunities for our colleagues. We know that because of you, what we're able to present today goes beyond, just sharing information, but creates engagement, creates authentic opportunities for others to learn from your best practice. And as I always like to share, it gives us an opportunity to steal your great ideas. Because over the course of the past 4 years, much of what we've been able to accomplish, from Future Ready PA to the graduation standards to focusing around equity and inclusion for all students, has been made a reality because we've identified your best practice across the state. And I love when I get to visit a school district and I hear, well, we've kind of been doing some of that. We just, it just may look a little different. And I've shared, yeah, absolutely, that's by design. We go and we visit school districts and we take that best practice and we share it with our team and we ask them to develop and model that for our colleagues across the Commonwealth. But of course, we're still, PDE in Harrisburg, and so we don't give you credit for any of that. But know that we stole your great ideas. I also want to take a moment to thank you for coming today. I know how challenging it is to leave your school districts. And as I walked in and walking through the building, I can see everyone on their phone trying to get in that last-minute conversation or push send on that last-second email so that you can engage. And I'll see many of you, lean over and whisper onto your phones like I do, "I'll call you back," or "Stop calling me." Or if it's your kids, "Is this really important?" Your shoes are under the bed. But taking the time to be here today to not only engage with your colleagues, but to learn yourselves and take back this practice to your staff, to your teams, to your buildings, is exactly what will make our state and the districts within our state the best they can be. Creating professional learning communities and relationships focused on the needs and the improvement of students will continue to make us a premier education system across the Commonwealth. And your feedback has allowed us to evolve from just sharing policy and sharing updates to law, but to look beyond and make the connection around how data and how informed decision-making impacts learning opportunities for students. So as you've probably reviewed the agenda, you've noticed that there are lots of STEM-focused activities this year. The agenda ballooned from 5 STEM opportunities last year to 18 opportunities this year. There are also 2 mobile STEM labs here this week. And you'll get to meet some incredible students who did an outstanding job in the 2018 Governor STEM competition last May. And know that this focus on STEM is not an accident. We reviewed the numbers and we know that STEM and computer science are what's driving Pennsylvania's economy, as well as our workforce demand. And we know that the data you engage in, what you collect, how you articulate that data, how you make decisions, allows our programs to move forward with fidelity. allows us to be more strategic around the courses we offer students. And in the next few months, you're going to be focusing on developing opportunities for next year for your kids and your communities. And the information you provide as leaders and to the community will help create next generation learning opportunities. So we know that as education professionals, it's important to see what's driving our education narrative. And the programs you see here today, ensuring we're creating the next generation workforce, is really the focus, our North Star, in all that we do in the Department of Ed. So while you're taking time to visit the STEM labs and you get to see innovative approaches, and you get to really interact with others around curriculum, around data, around instructional practice, remember that these are resources for you to take back, implement, and make better. Because over the last several years, we've worked hard to promote STEM education, especially in conjunction with career and technical education opportunities. We've broken down silos in state government to ensure our students are focused and prepared for success when they graduate. We've broken down silos in working with labor and industry, human services, in working with economic development to ensure our students are college, career, and community ready. Which is why this is an absolute fitting theme for this year, coloring our world with quality data. And I even wore a special colorful tie. I think you can see it here in this picture. See this colorful tie? Now, before some of you are thinking, my goodness, that's an ugly tie. I know what you're thinking. My aunt made this for me. Now you feel bad, don't you? Well, even to make you feel worse, I know this is not a great tie. And I'm not only wearing it because it was a gift, because trust me, I have lots of ties that were given to me as gifts from my family that never see the light of day. But she patterned this tie over 1,000 slides that she created to pass on to an ocular pathologist. So before you kind of Google, what the heck is this tie all about? Every single one of the dots in this slide is an eyeball. So yeah, I have a family member who slices up eyeballs and puts them on slides and stains them so that a doctor can look at them. Pretty creepy. And she kind of fits that whole persona. But she raised me, and she still scares the heck out of me. She reminds me, remember what I can do with a scalpel. But I thought this was fitting because as why this work was extremely important to her, it's how she fell upon this opportunity. She was working as a receptionist one day at a hospital in an emergency room, and someone asked for her help. And she volunteered. And I like to share quite often when I share my story. I happen to be fortunate to be the first member of my family to attend college and graduate from college. But I wasn't the last. And she went on to go back to school after I graduated to get a certificate and to get a degree in this area to ultimately design a tie of eyeballs. But I don't give her much credit for her designing skills, but I give her credit for being an adult who went back to school to get an industry certificate and a degree. And if nothing else, that really exemplifies it's the perfect opportunity to connect the work that we do here each and every day. Because in engaging with each other and learning about best practice, with looking at data and engaging in STEM, it's not only preparing opportunities for the students that are in front of us today, but creating a trajectory for the non-traditional learner to come back, which is what the governor's also been focused on. It's creating an opportunity to build upon our experiences and the experiences of our institutions to look more holistically around how we serve our communities. It's about preparing the opportunity for a family who had a first-generation college graduate, but not the last generation to graduate from college. So I ask that you engage over the next few days and the next few hours and the next few days to remember to take the time to meet someone new. share a fresh idea, ask a good question. Because in a few days, you're going to be leaving the summit and heading home, and you're going to have to share with your colleagues, your supervisors, and others about the event. And not just for your continuing education credit, but because we want this to be another catalyst in creating professional learning communities, both formally and informally. We want this to be a catalyst in forging and establishing relationships to better serve our kids and better serve our communities. We want this to serve as a catalyst to again remind every community in the Commonwealth how important the work we do is and how we serve kids and communities each and every day. Because as I'm reminded every time I get to visit a student teacher and I get to share what I learned from them, we are the occupation that creates all other occupations. And the work that you do through data, through program evaluation, through your leadership shows that education is not a cost, it's an investment. And you quantify and qualify that return on our investment. So now I'm going to invite my friend and colleague up to share with you. So he's going to take everything I said and then throw it into data. And that really excites you guys, I know, in this room. So I'm going to invite Deputy Secretary Matt Stem to provide some comments around Future Ready PA, which is not only our innovative school measurement tool launched in 2018, but is the hub, the nucleus of all we do through the Department of Ed, early childhood, through college and career readiness. So Matt's going to work to try to tie this all together around how data informs policy decisions and continue to explain to you why the work you do each and every day is so important. So thank you for all you do. It's noticed and greatly appreciated.
Good morning. I thought it'd be a little stronger after the secretary inspired you and woke you up this morning. I'll do another good morning. Good morning, everyone. There you go. Great to see everyone. It's always a pleasure and a challenge to follow right after Pedro as he captures everyone's hearts, and then I come and make things a little bit more transactional. But hopefully, what I share today is going to be meaningful to the folks that we have here with us, and really then springboard you off into the sessions and the activities that you have for the rest of the day. So let me make sure, if you'll forgive me one moment, I've just got to grab my clicker. That I got so excited to come up here, I left my clicker sitting at the table. Thanks so much. So I love this year's theme that our team has created around coloring our world with data, but really the key word being quality data. And when I was in the field, working with our PIMS teams, we used to often wonder, there was this big push from PDE as we were working in the sandboxes and then signing our, ACSs and our attestations and everything else. This push for quality, it's time consuming. It taxes the teams, it taxes administration, taxes clerical, building level, district level. Is it really worth it? I mean, when I was in the field, we would sort of ask that question because it seemed like a heavy lift, and all of these new collections that seem to come every year. And you notice we're good at bringing new collections forward. It doesn't seem that we take as many away as we actually bring forward. And so what's the impact, and why do we do that? And I'm here to talk a little bit about that today, what that impact is at both the local level as well as the impact at the state level, and hopefully then when you return back to continue to do what you do in creating and ensuring that we have quality data, you have a little bit more of a context that could be helpful in that regard. So here's some context at a state level, and this will probably give a sense of the types of folks that we have in the room with us today. When you think about our K-12 public education system, we have 500 school districts in Pennsylvania that range in size from 200 to more than 140,000. And I have a slide that's going to unpack those numbers a little bit more in a minute because I think there's something important there. But we also have 164 brick and mortar charter schools, and we have 15 cyber charter charter schools that are responsible for educating 135,000 students. This is all part of the 1.7 million public school students that we serve. And then finally, we have 16 comprehensive CTCs, as well as 68 occupational CTCs, and then 135 high schools that are offering approved PDE programs with over 1,722 approved programs, serving 67,248 students. So that's a breakdown on our 1.7 million students, and hopefully we have folks that are here today from traditional public schools, from charter schools, from CTEs, and you could see how your schools fit within those broader numbers. But when we unpack it a little bit more, I think it's important to take a look at how these numbers break down. What you see in front of you is a chart that shows the size of our 500 LEAs by enrollment in Pennsylvania. And this is something that we talk about on our team an awful lot. So I was blessed in the field. I was in the field 22 years before coming to the department, and I had the privilege in working in two different settings. One that was a school district that was larger than 10,000 students, and one that was a school district that was smaller than 2,000 students. And one of the things that we learned, that I learned, and that we keep in the forefront as a team is that when we make decisions at a state level, including the decisions we make in the PIMS world, we've got to be cognizant of the schools and the districts that we're serving, right? PDE, we exist not for ourselves, but we exist to serve schools and remove obstacles so that you all can do good work. And so if you take a look up here, one of the things to note is that 60% of the school districts in Pennsylvania serve fewer than 2,500 students. And if you think about what that means that if you're one of the PIMS administrators for one of those schools, it's more than likely that that's not your only job. You're probably also wearing 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 additional hats. So there's unique challenges that come to that when you're trying to manage, because you have the same number of data collections as everyone else does, and so there's unique challenges and opportunities. Now, when I worked in a setting like that, the challenge is capacity. The opportunity is that student populations, you have less data points, right? So on the plus side, you have less data points, but on the challenge side, you have limited resources to deal with that. And that's 60% of all districts. And then on the other side, we've got districts that are 17 districts that are larger than 10,000 students. And so when you work in that kind of environment, which I also did, the good news is usually, not always, but usually you have some more capacity. If you're a PIMS administrator from a district with more than 10,000 students, that's probably the only hat that you wear, and you might even have a couple of others on your team. The challenge in that environment is that you have a lot of data points to track, and sometimes those data points move even faster than we can keep up with, right? So those are sort of the two bookends, and then everywhere in the middle, we've got districts that are sort of then on that continuum. You might have a little bit more capacity, but more students. And so just so you're aware of that, we at PDE and our data teams and our program folks are aware of the environment you work in. And part of our technical support and customer service, and even the themes that resonate throughout this week, are cognizant of the capacity and the resources and challenges and opportunities you have so that we could lead well. And we have lots of individuals on our teams that have worked in schools, that have sat in your shoes, and just know that we bring that to the way that we approach our work. So knowing that, we're going to circle back around at the very end to this slide again, and you'll see how this all connects together. So whether you work in a very small district, whether you work in a very large district, at the end of the day, the question is the time and energy that you and your teams put into your PIMS collections and creating quality data, what's the return on investment, right? Like what's it all for and what's the impact? So I want to start by giving, we're going to break down in 2 buckets. I want to give the impact for you directly at the local level, at a school and a district level, and then we'll talk about the impact at a state level. So at a district level, one of the things that's critically important about having that clean quality data is that this is how you're communicating progress to your communities, to your stakeholders, to your parents, to your business and industry members, to your elected officials. And so, as Secretary Rivera mentioned before, we were thrilled this year to launch the Future Ready PA Index. And that wouldn't have happened not only without your quality data, but without your input and feedback over the better part of 2 years on what we measure and why we measure it. I'm happy to report that since we launched in November, we have had I think the number even probably moved in the last week or two since I got this number, but we've had over 750,000 page hits to futurereadypa.org, and we've had over 40,000 unique users hit the site. And that's exactly the type of tool and resource that we put forward to get that type of use to change and shape culture in schools. So when Future Ready PA was redesigned, it was redesigned knowing that what we measure is what gets treasured, and it's what shapes practice in schools. And so when you hear the Secretary talk about college, community, and career ready, we had to have a public reporting and communication system that speaks to those values. And up on your screen, you have sort of the Cliff Notes version of the way we went beyond single point-in-time assessments, which overwhelmingly dominated prior state report cards that we've had and that other states have had. And we've introduced on-track measures, and then we've also introduced that entire section on college and career measures. And what we've done in the process is that we've elevated things like career and technical education, like our career education work standards, and we've created that buzz. I'm sure that if we were to do a show of hands, almost all hands would go up regarding the ways that your schools are talking more about career readiness. We're talking to fifth graders about career pathways like middle skills jobs and jobs that require college education, all of those things. But it's happening because we've had to frame the discourse, and it's been framed with the data that you all have ensured is quality that undergirds our entire system. So the first thing to be aware of in terms of the return on investment at a local level is the data that you provide that our teams then convert into the Future Ready PA Index. The second thing to be aware of when it comes to quality data is how it informs accountability decisions. So last fall, we identified schools in need of comprehensive support and improvement and additional targeted support and improvement. And although those are federal requirements, it also aligns with our beliefs that we at PD have to provide the supports necessary to ensure that schools are continuing to improve. And so in order for us to get the right schools, there's a lot riding on that, and we need to make sure that we're intervening in the right schools. And so the 300 schools that we identified were identified based on the data that you had in your system. And I won't spend a lot of time on these slides, but here's step one of that process where we have assessment, student achievement on a graph along with student growth. And then from there, we go to step two that then walks us through additional indicators and sort of filters out from there, and then finally graduation rate. But all of that data that you put in and ensure that it's accurate is ensuring that when we identify our CSI, ATSI, and TSI schools, that we're getting the right schools, and then our supports and our limited resources at a state level are going to the right places. Third, we look at not only how we communicate process and how we inform accountability decisions, but how you at a local level can inform your interventions and your programs that you're putting in place. So one of the things that we're working on as a state, and this is a good preview, this will make it part of worth the price of admission here for you this week. We have a team led by Dr. Sherry Smith that is now looking at redesigning our entire comprehensive plan. All right, the Secretary has been directing us for years to find a better way to create a comprehensive planning tool that is efficient and helps us to hone in with a laser-like precision around the areas that we really need to focus on so that the comprehensive planning tool is a living document and useful for driving all sorts of practices. So as we look at comprehensive planning, as we reimagine it, the initial part of that whole notion of continuous improvement is around a diagnostic review and then root cause analysis. So if our teams don't have quality data in the systems, even when we build the new comprehensive planning tool, you're not going to have good data to lead to the right sorts of goals, objectives, and action plans. So again, when you're going into system and you're wondering, why we have to make sure that all the data coming out of child accounting is deadly accurate in the system, and our graduation and our chronic absenteeism and all those other pieces that we report, it's because you're going to have teams, and many of you are on those teams, that are disaggregating that data and setting vision for the years ahead. And so it's just critically important that that data be quality. And then when we also talk about, finally at a local level, informing resource allocations. And I won't spend a lot of time here, but you know that when we distribute federal funds at a district and a school level, a lot of those resource allocations, for example, are done using data that's in the system, again, from child accounting and in the PIMS world, to be sure that the right resources are getting to the right schools. So that's what's happening at a local level. If we take a look at a state level, one of the very first impact of quality data at a state level is the same as it is at a local level, and that's communicating progress. So I'm going to take us back to Future Ready for a minute. And I'm sure all of you have spent a lot of time in Future Ready, and you're totally fluent, and you've seen this screen, and this is a sample screen that it's one of the first things you get when you click to unpack the academic assessments. But when we go just one step further here, I'm just highlighting for you that we were intentional about putting state averages in Future Ready PA Index, A, to provide context for your schools and communities, but B, to hold ourselves accountable for ensuring at a state level that we're moving in the right direction. So the data that's in our systems, and this is across indicators, has to be accurate, because this is communicating not only local progress, but the data you enter into the system is communicating what our progress looks like at a state level. And then finally, looking at all of the areas that your data informs. And this is something that really, I'll be honest with you, when I was in the field, didn't think much about this, and now living for 4 years at the state level, I have a whole different appreciation for the types of activities that happen at a state level that have a direct impact on every one of you in your districts. So, for example, the data that we put into your systems that then upload to the state are used for policy decisions. I'll give you an example. The Secretary talked a lot about STEM. We have a team that's been uploading data into a Tableau system to track computer science offerings throughout the state and identify areas where computer science instruction isn't happening, so that we can target grant dollars and other state dollars to those schools, and then communicate out, how are we doing? Are we improving computer science access? But those policy decisions are made with your data. We have teams, and many of them are sitting right up here up front, that take what's in PIMS and then disaggregate that out in various systems, and it gets shared with the governor's team, and it gets shared certainly internally at PDE, and we make policy decisions off of that. But the other thing that happens with the data that you put in your systems is it informs legislation. We get calls at PDE probably every single week from a lawmaker that's interested in moving a bill forward. And when we get those requests, always we get an ask for, give us the data on X, Y, or Z. And sometimes we even have the opportunity to walk across the street, as we say, over to the Capitol and sit down with lawmakers and look at data to help inform bills. So if you think about it, when I was in the field, we would always say, oh, I can't believe that, this law was passed, or sometimes, oh, I'm so excited that this law is passed, it's going to be good for kids. But in either case, the laws are only going to be sometimes as effective as the data that PDE is providing to guide and shape those laws. A great example is the change in law around graduation requirements. We created a report at PDE that disaggregated all sorts of data around student graduation and numbers of students that wouldn't graduate based on passing all 3 keystones, all sorts of stuff. And then that helped inform legislation that then was enacted into law and is going to impact every one of your students. So that's your data. The data you put in is what's informing that legislation. Third, your data informs research. At the department, we get research questions that come in probably at least once every couple of weeks from a third-party research outfit that wants our data, which is your data, to inform research. Lately, one of the topics, and the Secretary mentioned this, that we talk a lot about, and there's a lot of research, is about equity and about what kind of gaps are we seeing academically, what kind of gaps are we seeing in terms of some of the non-academic or disciplinary issues. That's coming out of PIMS. And that research, by the way, they get reported, and then they find their way into informing lots of decisions that happen. So we use your data for research. We use your data for media requests. We get outreaches that say, I'm doing a story at a national or state level. We're doing a story on, let's say, school safety. Give us your data, give us your numbers on fill in the blanks. And the data that we provide that becomes the narrative, I'll say that again, the data we provide that becomes the statewide and national narrative is the data that you all are putting into the systems. And then lastly, it's about how we monitor and provide technical support at PDE. We use data to make data-informed decisions about how we leverage our teams, how we leverage our resources, risk-based monitoring, all of that stuff, in order to make sure that we're providing effective customer service to our schools. And so when you think about all of this, and again, we come back to now your reality, right? So that's our reality, is those other pieces we talk about. Your reality is in a day or two, you're going to go back to your districts, whether you've got less than 500 students, which by the way, 89 of our districts have less than 1,000 students. So whether you're going back to one of our really small districts or a district of tens of thousands of students, you're going to be faced again with, here comes another PIM submission. Now I've got to, we've got to work this out. This is getting flagged in the sandbox, and here we go. And you're going to be grinding it out. But when you do that, hopefully, what I've shared with you can energize to a degree and at least let you know that all your time and energy isn't for nothing, that it's having an impact, and at the end of the day, it is helping to ensure that every student in Pennsylvania is college, community, and career ready. And so I'm going to leave you with a challenge, and in particular with this slide up. So if I put my hat back on in the field, especially when I was an assistant superintendent in 2 different districts, and one, as I said, was a district with less than 2,000 students, and another one was a district with more than 10,000, where we had a PIMS team. In both cases, our PIMS administrators used to come to me and say, can you please help? The principals aren't giving me this data on time, or our clerical aren't getting me this data, or, I need your time, I need your attention. And I'll candidly, because I didn't look around enough, I'm sure maybe 1 or 2 of the folks is here, and they can tell you I'm telling the truth. Sometimes I was really, really receptive to that, and I would say, let's sit, let's talk, let me help move obstacles, let me go see the superintendent, let me make this decision. And then other times, I was in the grind, and I'm sort of parking PIMS off to the side and say, you gotta wait, you gotta wait, you gotta wait, and then inadvertently was devaluing it. So if I had it to do over again, knowing what I know now, I would be a much more attentive administrator to our PIMS teams. So my challenge to everyone here is, as you leave this week, to our superintendents, assistant superintendents, and those that oversee PIMS, the PIMS working districts, please do whatever you can when your PIMS administrator comes knocking at your door. Smile, tell them how important they are, tell them that you know how important quality data is to what's happening at a local, state level, and make the time to support them so that they not only feel supported, but can go back and make sure that you have, and we have the quality data, which is what this conference is all about. So thank you for allowing me to share with you this morning. We wish everyone a great conference, and on behalf of our team, entire team at PDE, again, thank you for what you do, and we wish you a great finish to the school year. Thank you.